Okay. Um, so we've got a few things to do tonight, but maybe this could be a shorter meeting than our
Don't
last two.
say it.
No, right. Don't jinx it. Uh, I guess that we've got some minutes that we can look at, but maybe before we dive into those, we can talk a little bit about a few budget related updates. And so there are a couple that I think we need to all be aware of. I'll start with a couple of the simpler ones. So one is that apparently there's uh, a new old bill that needs to be paid. I think we had already discussed the $134 bill from Encore Fire Protection for fire extinguisher service. I guess they just found another bill from Pechoric Electric for annual generator maintenance, $600. And that bill was dated October 13th, 2023. So that's one thing that I think, and it occurred to me, the way the way the warrant article for these prior bills is written is it doesn't specify a source for the funds. It just says to see if the town will vote to pay bills from prior years. First, the bill. So I was wondering, does anybody know how we dealt with that in the past? Do those just get paid from whatever budget lines they would have been appropriate if they had been paid in the correct fiscal year? Or do we have to actually source them from some other fund source? Does anybody have any idea about that?
I would have thought that I can't imagine it doesn't specify the source because the year is closed.
Yeah. All right.
So it's possible that the warrant article for the other item just wasn't written right. We should maybe go back to a prior year
Yeah.
when there was one of those and look at the minutes from that meeting and look at the warrant articles from that meeting.
Yeah. I had assumed that's what they had done because that's kind of how they had been drafting this, but that's a good point. Let me just take a look.
I'll look at that while we're talking. I'll
All
find.
right, that sounds good.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. I'm sure we had one in 2024. I kind of remember that. If not 2020.
How do you spell Pechuric?
It's
Pachiorek.
well, this in the
Got it.
warrant article, they're spelling it Paciorek.
Right.
Is that
Without an H?
Paciorek. Yeah, Paciorek.
Got it. Electric. All right.
$600?
Yep. I got the rest. I wrote the name down, but I just speed wrote it and don't know how to spell it. So,
All right.
anyways.
So it's a warrant article that has to be written, right, to pay these old bills.
So I'll share my screen. So there was an article already drafted that we discussed and voted at that joint select board meeting, and it read basically this way, except now they've added this, and secondly, a bill from Pechoric Electric. And I was just rereading it just now before our meeting, and I noticed that it didn't identify a source. Susie, did you learn something?
Yeah, it says, this is, for the year ending in 2023. And they say by transferring from free cash,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So that's what we need to add in there.
Okay.
Susie, is the bill for maintenance around the town hall?
No, this is Article 31, and it says to see if the town will vote to pay a bill from prior years by transferring from free cash to citizen security invoice, blah, 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 dated such and such for a certain amount. So they list where.
No, I meant the Pechoric bill.
This one,
No, I don't have that one.
yes, all it says is for annual generator maintenance. I don't know if that's.
Got to be the fire station, right?
Well, it could be a town hall, and if it's of any comfort, the MLP pays for half that bill because they do maintenance on our generator as well as the town's generator.
Got it.
If that makes any difference, it may just complicate things. I don't know.
I'm not sure it does because I guess since the the fiscal year is closed, I think we're gonna have to fund this. through
Yeah, well,
reserves. So let me see. So maybe if this read, to see if the town will vote to pay bills from prior years. First, a bill from Encore, and secondly, a bill from.
We'll vote to transfer from free cash. Put that up near the beginning. We'll vote
To transfer from free cash.
Hey,
to pay.
To
to
pay
pay.
bills from prior years. Maybe I'll just say including a bill from, or I guess that's fine. First, a bill from. Second, yeah. Is this read okay to everybody?
Except it
Yeah,
should
just
be,
take off the D and free.
yeah, it's not freed cash.
Let me free.
Yes.
Free.
And then, so does this look good to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I gotta remember to send.
And that requires 9/10 vote.
9/10.
Yes,
Price 4/5 or 9/10.
9/10.
9/10.
Oh, okay.
So AJ, may I ask, why are you doing warrant articles? Wasn't that always the town administrator's job?
So so I got an email from Brennan just like within the last couple of hours. So I think Brennan has been drafting these articles and I thought had been using, and I think for the most part had been using prior year as templates. So I am just, but since I noticed that this was
Good.
missing language, I'm gonna send it to them for to make sure it gets corrected.
Is Haley, is she on these links? Because she should be.
Yes.
Is who?
Is Haley, our town
You might need to
administrator.
send it right away because the select board's voting on the warrant to post it tonight.
Yes.
should we vote a recommendation on this?
Yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion to recommend approval of this warrant article number 20.
Second.
Arvanitis, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, aye.
Okay. All right, let me just send this. Now,
Curious how this happens.
Human error.
Human error. Okay, well, that's we gotta get rid of some of those humans and get some AI.
Yeah, well, and Pechoric Electric, I mean, their collections, I mean, if I'm running a business and I got somebody who hasn't paid me in 90 days, I'm all over them. And that human error is usually found. It sounds to me like they just discovered it themselves.
We don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it's human error. Maybe they never billed us. It's human error to whose it is, who knows?
Which human?
Yes.
just bear with me, guys. I'm sending Brennan this email now.
And I do think if it came to the town meeting floor and it didn't specify, we would just specify there.
Always modify it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That piece.
And I think we're gonna. I'm gonna give you another update in just a minute of something I think we are gonna have to do on town floor. Sorry. All right, I'll just copy and paste this. All right, so that is sent off. Okay, so another update I got literally at 5 o'clock I have one last minute add to the budget. I was told by the custodian that we need to purchase 4 AC units for town hall. This is from Haley. I am at a select board meeting tonight and won't be able to join the FinCom. So there's no specification of an amount, so I don't think we can do anything tonight. But I'm assuming that they're probably going to draft an article, I would think. And we're gonna either that or they're gonna, can they add one at town meeting? No, they can
You
only.
can't, yeah, the budget's the part of the warrant and you can go down, but it can't go up.
Yeah,
Well, plus, it's not necessarily a budget item, not an operating budget, it's a capital
I
item.
think it's a capital item, right?
Yes,
But if we assume it's a capital item, they can't add a capital warrant article at town meeting, right?
Right.
So
right.
maybe what they're planning on doing tonight is drafting something, making some preliminary, putting in some preliminary guess as to the amount, and maybe that'll get modified at town meeting. That they can do, right? They can modify the amount.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes, as long as they don't modify it up.
Right, has to go down.
And it'll change our estimate of free cash and stabilization on our annual report, but well, we'll
Those are
just change that on the
estimated.
fly. If we find out sooner, I can always update the annual report, because that's not necessarily due when the warrant articles need to be posted. We can do the annual report right up to the day of
Yeah.
town
Yeah,
meeting.
but we want it to be out there so that people can be looking and seeing,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
discussing.
Right. So, if we find out something in the next 24 hours, I can update easily
Yeah.
for that, the capital planning schedule, and then of course the annual report. But if not, we'll just, everybody take your pen out. I got adjustment for you. And we round to the thousands. I don't know how much can 4 air conditioning units be? I shouldn't ask.
2,000?
I was gonna say 1,500, 2,000, something like
Yeah, if they're mini splits, right?
that. Bob,
Yeah, I just want to say, number one, we have, when we put the mini splits downstairs, I think there's some air conditioners that were thrown out or gotten rid of, which is kind of disappointing if we need 4 more now. Number one. Number two, we do have a process for capital items, and this process that sort of says that we have to have a capital requested by February 1st. Long beyond that, and I don't like this kind of, it's not transparent to kind of just add things in when we've already considered the whole mass of capital requests, tried to balance our judgment about which things should be addressed and which things should be put off and so forth. And then have things come in, dribble, dribble, dribble at the end. This violates our process, which I think is a reasonable one. And so I'm questioning whether this should be entertained at all. But I suppose we'll have to discuss that when we ever see, if we ever see an actual article that represents this request. But it certainly wasn't part of the capital committee's workload.
I'm assuming this is the first everybody's heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah, and I might add, if these air conditioners are somewhat substantial, that it's going to require wiring, or it could. So that could add significantly to the cost. Because the building isn't really wired very, very well for heavy current consumption devices like air conditioners. So, you may have to get electrical wiring thrown in as well. So that's going to really run the cost up.
Sure, again.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure he'd be delighted to respond.
Susie.
Part of these things that are happening right now is because we haven't had a full-time, fully experienced town administrator since last November. So things are going to be different this year. And we've been working as a committee to try to do our best. But I really feel the missing hub at the center of this year. And that, the stuff around PFAS was all about not having a TA that was fully versed in this. So I'm not surprised it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen again. It doesn't look like that capital expense would have been the $5,000 or more to go to capital planning. And the alternate way of funding it is maybe out of FinCom reserves.
All right. And George,
I want to buttress that remark just very briefly. I agree with Susie that this is not, doesn't meet the minimum of the capital, and it's outside the process. So if we're going to consider it, I think we should consider it the way that Susie just suggested, as a transfer from our reserve.
I agree with all that. The only thing I have to add is, we'll see what the select board does. It's up to them if we take no action. And, there is money in the building account, but it's not a lot. And it probably will end up being a FinCom reserve transfer.
okay. Susie, your
Oh,
hand's
sorry.
no, okay.
Hand down.
All right, now I saved the best for last. So the third sort of budget related update that I have is regarding PFAS, and so I let me try to see how to give the background here. So I got an email from Haley saying that essentially she had spoken to Gail, the accountant, and that Gail had concerns about our plan to rescind the warrant article related to or last year's warrant article that authorized the town to borrow $150,000 for PFAS mitigation. The implication being that we still were going to need that money to fund the expenses. And so there's sort of an email chain. I think Susie was in on this too. I eventually asked Gail to clarify the kind of a couple of different scenarios that sort of I think people had been discussing. And so so basically she confirmed yesterday scenario 2 is correct. So scenario 2 said that I spelled out said that $300,000 was not going to be sufficient to cover our PFAS mitigation needs, that an additional $120,000 was needed on top of that. And so hence we shouldn't rescind the vote, last year's vote to borrow. And in bold, I said, does this mean we need to borrow $300,000 and transfer $150,000 from cash reserves for a total of $450,000 for PFAS expenses? She confirmed scenario 2 is correct. Please note the $120,000 will cover about $3,000 to $5,000 in unpaid bills. The rest covers about $40,000 a quarter in testing. So basically, I think it looks like a couple things. One, I guess it looks like for some reason, the estimate that we were given by Gabe, I think, which was suggesting that around $50,000 a year is what we want to anticipate needing to spend. It was grossly underestimating, according to Gail, what our actual expenses are. She's claiming that we actually require $40,000 a quarter in testing. I still am not feeling like 100% sure that this is clear and accurate, because just the fact that it is so it is so far in excess of what we had previously been told makes me nervous that maybe there's still some some confusion and lack of clarity on what this actually costs the town. But I was thinking that we may want to withdraw potentially that warrant article that rescinded last year's vote, just as a precaution, in the event that Gail is correct, and as this stuff gets clarified over the coming weeks, we still have the flexibility of having Ryan borrow that money in case we need it. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Want to see what you think, Bob?
Yeah, I just want to, maybe for clarification, you can help me understand this a little better. I thought my takeaway from our last conversation about this issue was that we had already been committed to borrowing $150,000 on
Right.
top of 126, which we allocated at a special town meeting a couple of years ago, which totaled whatever that total is, 373 or whatever it is. And we were planning on transferring up to $150,000 at this town meeting, in addition to that, which would bring the total up even more. So that would be,
Yeah.
whatever. So so now I'm thinking that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money beyond what we owe at this point. And we are bound and very, very, very likely to have a special town meeting the fall or later this year. So I think we have plenty of money built into our plan right now. We even added money for flexibility and for some miscalculation, in my opinion. So I think we're good. I think we should let it ride the way it is. I think we have flexibility. We have additional monies available to address this problem. And then we're going to have opportunity to, unfortunately, borrow or add more money in the future if we needed it.
Mhm. Susie?
Putting up the scenarios on the screen, because
Yeah.
that would help
Okay.
follow
Yes.
along.
Oh yeah. Why am I sharing that? Okay. So let me give you I guess I'm going to share a couple different emails. So I'll show you the first one. So this, all right. So this was,
Can you blow it up, please?
sorry, say that again.
Blow it up.
Please.
Oh yeah.
Please blow it up.
Mhm.
How's that?
Yep.
Good.
So this was from Haley on Thursday. So these are the details she was relaying from Gail. $442 left in the account. Okay. $3,000 worth of bills. So already expended that she can't pay because there's not enough money in that account. There's a tie and bond contract that is in the 70,000 something area. There's money that has already been sort of in the account that had already been earmarked for that. So that's covered. Gail stated she needs the full $300,000 to be borrowed and that we should rescind any borrowing. I
You
assume
can change that to not rescind. her-
Yes.
Yeah. Right. This should not rescind any borrowing, right?
Right.
Here's the thing. We have an additional $120,000 on top of the $300,000 that needs/will need to be paid. We have spent over $500,000 to date on all the billing. These are just numbers that I think are sort of way in excess of, I think, anything we had sort of
Mhm.
previously understood. The fact that this is coming from Gail makes me think this is not just like some, clerical mistake or something, that these are real expenses. Okay, you can also see essentially we need to borrow the full $100,000 and find a funding source for the $120,000. When I spoke with Maddie and Elena, so these are the people from Comerford's office, I believe.
Yeah.
They asked why the town doesn't have residents pay for the testing. My understanding is that since the source stems from the fire department, the town has undertaken all payment. Just throwing it out there, we may want to consider that policy.
Oh, that would be a select board thing.
So okay, so there's a typo. Okay, so then I So then I just wanted to make sure I was understanding this correctly. So so this is then the email that I sent to Gail. All right. Can you guys read that, or is that
You're pretty good.
bigger?
Here we go. Better.
So I said, hi, Gail, can you clarify which of these two scenarios is correct? Scenario one. So this is, I think this represents what we had assumed the situation was, that the PFAS account is essentially fully spent. We have $3,000 that needs to be paid, $120,000 in near future invoices, and approximately $50,000 in ongoing PFAS mitigation expenses likely needed for FY26. Funds available. Ryan is about to secure a $150,000 loan authorized in 2023. Warrant article to be voted on at this year's AGM that will transfer $150,000 in cash reserves. My assumption was $300,000 should be sufficient to cover our obligation, hence we can rescind the 2024 vote utilizing cash reserves rather than borrowing additional 150. So I asked her, okay, so that, I think that represents basically what we all thought the situation was, right? So then scenario two is $300,000 is not sufficient to cover our PFAS mitigation needs. An additional $120,000 needed on top of $300,000 that is currently planned for. Hence, we cannot rescind the 2024 vote that authorized $150,000 of borrowing for PFAS. We'll need to borrow $300,000 and transfer $150,000 for a total of $450,000 for PFAS expenses. Scenario two is correct. Please note the $120,000 will cover about $3,000 to $5,000 in unpaid bills. So these are the things that she can't pay right now, and the rest will cover this. You know, I don't know. She's previously they said $120,000. Now it's saying $40,000 a quarter. That should be $160,000. So anyway, the point being that she seems pretty adamant that we are going to need all of the borrowing that has previously been authorized, in addition to cash reserves. So okay, so this has, I think, a couple important implications for us right now. I think one is we're going to have to I think we're going to have to increase the amount of interest expense in our operating budget, I assume, because we're going to need the interest expense for $300,000 worth of borrowing instead of $150,000 worth of borrowing. That
You were,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that borrowing will happen in the new year.
Right.
So we don't have to borrow. I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood you, but we don't have to budget another $7,000, $7,300 for.
Oh, we wouldn't?
Not for 26, because the loan, he said he's got till August. If he takes the loan after June, then
Get the expense until the following year?
the interest would, yeah, hit us in the following year.
Okay, all right, okay, well, that is, okay, then, thanks for clarifying that. So I thought.
Well, that was the case with the library loan. Remember, he said the
Right,
library
right.
loan's going to happen after June. It's going to happen in July, so we won't have to pay interest this year.
Okay, all right.
So I'm assuming they're the same. I could be wrong.
All right, so if we were to withdraw that warrant article that rescinds the authorization to borrow $150,000, that has no implication on our operating budget, sounds like, because we're only needing to budget for the 150K that Ryan has taken out or is about to take out this month. Yeah. Okay. But this does, well, anyway, I see a couple hands up. So George and then Bob.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. If Gail says this, it must be true. But I know they're not doing it quarterly. I think they're only doing it semi-annually. And for me, I really think we should leave it there and we should try and meet with her. This whole thing is so big, and the fact that we can't wrap our heads around it, and we, not just the finance committee, but the whole town, I mean, there should be, I hate to say it, a special committee to figure this out. What I would like to see, Gail has been here since this started. I believe she could show us when funds came into she should be able to give us the whole accounting of the PFAS account from day zero, when that account was created, what went in. We don't need the breakdown of the bills, just the total bills for each period, and then a rolling balance, and see where we really are. I do trust what she's saying. I just don't see how we spent $450,000. And I just don't, I can't wrap my head around all this. It doesn't all make sense to me. And so what I'm saying is I think we should really meet with her. And I would like to ask her for a full accounting. I know I'm asking her to do work. It could be a couple hours for her to do that. She's really good. She's very quick when I ask her questions, but I think we need to see that accounting. And I think we need to clarify, is it quarterly or is it semi-annually? Because I think it's quarterly. I think it's semi-annually.
Yeah. So
Anyways.
I totally agree with you. I think the town needs to have a clear understanding at town meeting about this issue, what it is requiring us from the town to kind of what it's costing the town on an annual basis and how we're planning for this. So I agree with you. Bob.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm just taking from this what you just showed on the screen.
Mhm.
Gail said that there was a balance that she was due of what, $20,000, or it's further up on your screen here. The amount due
So
was,
so the so you mean, so what she said was that there was somewhere around $3,000 to $5,000 worth of.
was due, and she's already paid 120,000. And then
No,
she's saying that, then she said further down that she's paid 4.5 million, 450,000. So
So Bob, the $120,000 was
paid it.
her understanding of what we would need to have for future testing in the upcoming year. So her point was you need $120,000 on top of what has already been spent.
but my understanding is that we have already paid most of the all the expense, except for what she said, $3,000 to $5,000. Everything else has been paid.
No, that's not what she's saying.
Okay, this is confusing, so I'd like
So
to.
the other, the other piece of this that I could add in is that because we did not have a town administrator, it's not clear that the invoices were coming in to Gail. So when she says she's sitting on top of unpaid bills, part of it is the bills didn't get to her. And now she has a window on a bunch of things coming in, and she's saying that she believes we need to have, basically she's been about close to $500,000 altogether. That's not all spent money. There's invoices left to be paid, and there's projected costs coming in the next year. But I would offer, for my own thought, is I don't see that we have, it's important for us to meet the costs, but I'm not sure that she gets to say it's through that warrant article from 2024. And that in the fall, we will have, so right away, from what we have in our budget now, there's a plan for 300,000 to go out. And then in the fall, after certified cash, if we find ourselves needing to move beyond that, and she can help us see that, then we could have a special town meeting and use cash reserves. We originally thought we were going to get to avoid the interest cost because of Clean Water Trust. We don't know how that's going to pan out. And there are people still working on that. Aaron's still working on it. And I don't know how Joe Comerford's office is how far they've gotten with it. But we do know that there may be more money needed than what we have. But the way to meet it doesn't mean that we have to use the borrowing mechanism from the 2024 town meeting. It could be that we explain to Gail, we will bring it back in a special town meeting in the fall and use it out of cash reserves rather than borrow.
I'd like to finish what I was saying. I'm just saying, I'm responding to Gail, this correspondence. And for me, it doesn't add up. So you're right. We need to have a meeting or have an accounting from our accountant to know exactly what's been spent, what our quarterly or biannual or annual expenses are, what we can anticipate for the coming year. I do think we have a lot of flexibility because we just covered $300,000 in our plan that we drew up. I don't see why we should be panicking. I think, but I would like to get more complete information from Gail. I think that's not unreasonable. I mean, she is the accountant. She knows about this. And
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reach out to Haley and Gail and ask for a meeting ASAP so that I think we need before annual town meeting. It may be, I'll ask first if she can join a FinCom meeting. I know that's sometimes difficult for Gail, so it's possible that that meeting will have to happen outside of a FinCom meeting, in which case, I'll try to grab George or Susie, who I think are both very aware of kind of the issue. But let's see, hopefully, I mean, in best case scenario, we could have her join a FinCom meeting. So I'll work on getting that scheduled. George?
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm thinking about who's going to explain this to the voters at town meeting. And certainly meeting with her is going to make it easier. If it ends up being you, AJ, or somebody on this committee, will be better educated when we meet with her. I'm concerned about the long range, and I guess Susie touched on the point that this is all still kind of mushy. We still don't really know what the answer is. But right now, $300,000 loans, we've got 10 years of loan payments on that. So that's 30,000 a year in principal, plus the interest in the first year is 7,000 on each. So, we're looking at 67, what's that, $74,000? And in the first year of that loan. So we just plopped a lot of loan in our operating budget, and we're going right over what we've always tried to keep our capacity at. So we really need to plan how we're going to deal with this in the long run. Not only, I definitely got to figure out where we are and what Gail's telling us, but we got to look at this as a long-term perspective.
April.
Yeah, I also think we should include the select board in these meetings. This isn't just our purview. And I do agree with the sentiment that a chunk of this we could put off until the fall. I don't think we need to panic until October 15th or whatever. It is a huge thing. And again, I do want to reiterate the idea that we not having an experienced town administrator on board is really making this more challenging.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a complicated issue, and I feel like we've just had incomplete information sort of throughout the process, and yeah, I can't. I mean, this would have been a tricky issue for the most experienced town administrator to sort of help make sense of, let alone a brand new one. Susie.
And that lack of knowledge is the same thing that Gail Weiss has been having. The invoices, when Gabe was in there, she was trying to get forwarding invoices into a pile. And I know that with Brennan coming on board, he took up some of the PFAS information process. I don't know which parts he did, but this is all about new people don't know what's going on, and they're working at it. And that's human. That's what we got. And so we need to not sort of decide that somebody didn't give us enough information. I think the information is still being gathered by all the parties involved.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I don't think there's anything any action for us to take tonight regarding this, but I think, we've got a set of questions that we have to get answers to, in the next, week or two. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of this clarified. And then whoever said this is right. We'll presumably have a better idea of what the outcome of Haley's sort of interventions in terms of getting Saunders and Comerford's offices involved. See if anything comes of that. Okay, so stay tuned. And I think the only thing that we need to do tonight in terms of revising budget stuff is I think we need to add this I think we need to add an item, a line to our CapEx funding. I'm just going to pull that up right now. All right, so this is our CapEx funding planning tool. Okay, and so I think we need to see a line on here for those prior year bills, right? I mean, that should,
Yes.
otherwise we're not going to have an accurate number,
Yeah, that's correct.
right? Okay, so do you think I should put that under the cash reserve, or is it more like,
No, it's not,
or is it
yeah,
more like
the
a
top
cap-
section is really capital items. So yes, lower section. I would squeeze it on line 22 between the mitigation fund. I think that's probably fine right there. Yeah, just insert a row there. So now I got to change the annual report.
All right.
Actually, I might not have to because the rounding might still be the same because everything's rounded to thousands. But even if I do, that's fine.
Okay,
I'm just complaining.
let me see, what was that?
730, 600 and 134, right?
All right, so 734.
I think so.
600. Oh yeah, the two together.
Two together.
All right, 734
Mm.
cash. All right. So I think that's it, right? Let's see. Bob?
Yeah, Joe Comerford sent all of us an email. I'm sure that everybody else got it, saying
Yeah.
that managed to claw out some money for school aid and some other things. Is that going to affect our budget at all?
That's gonna be that's the FY25 surcharge supplement budget. And they are very clear that that money does not go into FY26 that way. We may end up with supplemental money at the end of 26. And the thing I was trying to find out from them, and I asked Aaron, is will that supplemental money come in before our books close June 30? And he said he didn't know. And so it's in this process. It looks positive. It's part of why the school is saying they will not, they believe they can meet their salary level without having to come back to us for 12,000. And it's because of the sped costs, and the circuit breaker is in that supplemental one. So that looks positive. I want to bring up one more thing though. We were going to talk about the warrant article for the litigation costs because the language says that the FinCom recommends. And we actually recommended that it be a separate article, but we didn't make a recommendation on whether we thought it should be funded from free cash.
Yeah. So
All right. So wait, one thing at a time. So
But that also is about closing the warrant, but we can just say we didn't recommend it on the floor.
all right, so yeah, we'll discuss that next. So George, I think this should be
yeah, that's everything. No, I'm pretty sure it is.
yeah, the only thing I just did, I realized we had labeled this as operating budget legal, but it's really not operating budget, right? It's
Right, because we moved it out of there. And yeah, as you saw in the select board meeting, I never picked up on that on the other report either. So this is good. That's where it belongs.
So legal solar bylaw. Okay. All right.
That's the way it belongs. I mean, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think these ending balances, assuming everything passes, should be accurate. All right. So let me pull up the warrant article. It occurred to me after, as we were leaving the select board, I was like looking at the the town warrant, and there's this no, sorry, that's the wrong one. Legal, I want. Okay. So Article 17 reads to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash $30,000 for legal expenses to support the town of Shutesbury in its solar bylaw litigation. Okay. And it says sponsor, planning board, and select board, and it reads finance committee recommends 7-0. Okay, and so, you know, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, we definitely took a vote and it was a unanimous vote, 7-0, but it didn't seem accurate to say that we, in as is the case with all of these other articles, when it says the finance committee recommends, what that means is that we're recommending that the town approve the article. And in our case, you know, we certainly didn't have that kind of a discussion in our committee. So yeah, I think what we're going to need to do is to immediately clarify before discussion begins at town meeting that the only action the finance, let me just run this by you guys, see if you think this is fair. The only action the finance, or the only discussion the finance committee has had on this item was a unanimous vote to recommend the presentation of a warrant article at town meeting that would promote a healthy discussion, a clarifying and healthy discussion among town residents about whether the town wants to continue to support or to allocate funds for this purpose. And that was the extent of our deliberation about this. And we just want to make sure it's clear that we don't have a position one way or the other on whether this article should be approved or not. You may hear from individual members of the FinCom speaking as individuals, but the Finance Committee doesn't have a view. Is that something like that sound right to everybody? All right, Bob, and then George.
I think does sound right to me, and I would just say finance committee recommends discussion on town meeting floor, something like that.
Yeah.
I think that reflects our opinion, unless I'm mistaken, that we wanted to see more transparency about this issue, and I want to see it brought up at town meetings so that the public can be more aware of what's going on. So that's my view. I think that there should be a discussion about this issue because it's been all top secret. I mean, we don't even know what's going on. At least I don't.
Right. George?
Yeah, I think we all agree with that, AJ. I certainly agree with that. I would say technically, when we were going through the warrant articles and we got to that warrant article, we may not have approached it that way at that moment. And I only say that because that's how I have it in the minutes. That doesn't mean I got it right, but that's how I have it in the minutes. We haven't approved those minutes. And maybe before we do, I should go back and watch that meeting and get to that point in time. I'm not arguing that I'm right, but that's the way I thought we did it. Because we were going down the warrant articles and we're like, do we approve it? Do we agree? And we said yes.
Yeah, I think we're sort of late in the meeting and we were sort of in a rhythm of doing this for like.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's what may have happened. And I just don't want to have the minutes suggest otherwise or have us suggest otherwise if that's not the case.
Well, George, one thing we could do potentially is take a new vote right now, right, to that clarifies along the lines, I think, of what Bob said, that the Finance Committee recommends a public discussion about this warrant article. And we could vote on that, and I think that would essentially be the committee's position, right? Regardless of what was discussed at the last meeting.
Yeah, I've not, I'm okay with that. That sounds great.
So Bob, I'm about to make a motion, but did you want to add something before I do that?
Particularly that Susie brought this issue up when we were talking about this article, and we did all agree, there was a consensus, that's my recollection. And yeah, I would support that, revoting.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to clarify the Finance Committee's position on Article 17. We recommend a public discussion of warrant Article 17 at annual town meeting.
Second.
Okay.
But do we want to have that written as the Finance Committee recommends, or?
Yeah, I
Because-
think as soon as we vote, I think, yeah, you're right. I'm going to send it to Brennan. We'll see if we can get it in the version that I know
Yeah.
I already heard from him that he got my earlier email. So I think they are checking, or at least getting updates. So so I think along those lines, I said Finance Committee recommends
Public discussion.
public discussion at annual town meeting or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
All right. So I think I think I heard a second from somebody.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion?
No.
All right, George.
Arnaz, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
Stein, aye.
Should we vote to rescind the statement in the previous meeting where we support the article?
I don't know. Do we need to do that, or does this?
It's not a done deal yet, so we don't have to rescind it.
No.
Right?
Well, if we voted to recommend it in a previous meeting, then that recommendation goes on the warrant article, right? Finance recommends. And we're saying here that we just voted to recommend that the article be discussed on town floor and be created for discussion purposes. But we still haven't undone our recommendation if we had done that.
Can we
Yes.
have a
Being
minute
very
today, a minute in this meeting that says we reviewed this topic and clarified the language?
Yeah. Because we never voted to approve, we
No.
weren't recommending the spending of the
I
money.
think we might have. That's
No,
my
no,
point.
we did not.
But not in our
You're
discussion, that
sure we
wasn't the
didn't?
spirit of our discussion, I don't think.
If you're sure we didn't, then right, we don't have
I'm
to.
sure we didn't. So I just think what we write a minute in this meeting that says we revisited this issue and we clarified our committee's position.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna put in the minutes.
Do we need to specify that we're not necessarily recommending the money? I'm just worried that there'll be some confusion, that the Finance
gonna
Committee
have-
recommends public
I
discussion.
think at town floor, I think at annual town meeting, we're gonna just make that statement very clear at
Okay,
the beginning, before the discussion proceeds. And hopefully, so I'm gonna actually email this now to Brennan and see if this can if we can actually change the language in the warrant before they pass it. So just bear with me for a second.
And when we say we're not recommending it, we're not recommending it either.
We just have we have not
Recommends
deliberated.
public discussion.
Yeah,
that's what we're recommending.
and that only.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have had no deliberation, no discussion about the merits of the article, it said.
Right.
Right.
Committee punts.
Say again?
Finance Committee punts.
Right.
I'll put that in the minutes.
So we open it up for democracy.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am. I like
I
that.
think this is, I love that we're doing this.
Sorry, so the Finance Committee, to clarify our recommendation on Article
17.
17, authorizing free cash for legal expenses. Committee has not deliberated on the merits of the article. Our unanimous recommendation to have a public discussion on town at annual town. Here is the revised language. Okay. All right. So, okay. Any of these other sort of like just developments or anything else we need to clean up or clarify? We can think about Susie.
I will follow back to the school, but at this point, I believe they're still looking for the $6,000 for the charging of the system or whatever they call it, the fluid.
HVAC.
Antifreeze stuff.
Yeah, so I'll check, and I told them that if they were, they need to contact us and put in a request, and we would either do a line-to-line transfer or from FinCom reserves if we voted to do that. So I don't know about that piece, but I do know they're not coming for 12,000.
Oh, I have one other update on this solar bylaw thing. So I because I was sort of nervous about like how this is going to be presented at town meeting, I had sent a message to first, I think, is it Nate that's the chair? Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he forwarded it to Michael DiChiara, who, because Nate is not is recused himself, I think, from anything related to the solar litigation. I had a conversation with Michael, and what I told him was that I just want to make sure that somebody is prepared to essentially facilitate this discussion at annual town meeting. That I didn't think it was the role of the FinCom, and I wanted the planning board to be aware that this article was drafted. And so he has asked me to sit in on a meeting with him and Donna tomorrow night. I'm going to basically say exactly what we've said here tonight, which is that, the FinCom doesn't have a position on the merits of this article, whether the town should prove it or not, and that if any FinCom members speak to this at annual town meeting, they'll be doing so in their capacity as just an individual resident, and that my only concern was that some group, whether it's the select board or the planning board or some combination, that somebody is in charge of kind of teeing up this discussion and making sure that it actually happens at a town meeting. So I suspect from what Michael started to say is that like Donna has some concerns about the ability of like the town to actually share information, and because of because the confidentiality issues, and that not wanting to sort of harm the town's position in these legal proceedings by sharing too much information. But I'm not going to get involved. I mean, that's I'm not. I don't have a. Yeah, I just want to make sure that somebody is organizing or is thinking about how to present this at annual town meeting. Susie.
And Rita said that Brennan was looking specifically at the costs
Yeah.
so far, including parsing out Donna's hours for the litigation, for the negotiations so far. So clearly, because we had said, there'll be questions. How much has it cost so far? What's the projected cost if we do go to court? time frame, blah, blah, blah. And so I can tell that Rita took a step towards finding out that information.
Yeah, I think that is important information. Right, like what have we actually incurred to date? And all right, so I guess we'll see what they decide to do, but I think it's kind of, I think it's really for the select board and the planning board and to figure out how they want that discussion to occur. Okay, anything else on budget, warrant article stuff?
Well, that's all warrant article stuff, right? Everything we did was really warrant article.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna have all that stuff in one place, and then
Right.
budget review.
We didn't. So actually, one question, George. So we did make a decision at our joint meeting, right, to move the custodial expense out of the library.
Yes, that's done. Yes.
That's done, right, and that's in
Mhm.
the budget that we sent the select board, correct?
That's the last budget I sent out, and Haley was on it, so she
All right.
should have it.
Yeah. So that was, I think, the only potential change that occurred to me to the actual operating budget itself. So, okay, got it. So I think there are a couple things we could potentially discuss tonight if people are motivated to do so. One is to look at the draft of the annual report and make any sort of comments or suggestions about that. And then the other would be, I do want us to have, sorry, was that somebody? No. I do also want us to have a discussion about sort of presentation and roles at annual town meeting. And I think, I think we had sort of talked sort of tentatively about the idea of like having a couple of different FinCom members share different sort of parts of the budget finance committee sort of picture at annual town meeting. So I think at some point we should discuss like kind of how we see that playing out at annual town meeting. Susie?
And we would also, we could parse it out for our information session. And because we use the draft report, I mean, we use the annual report, that's one way of figuring out how to sort out who can talk to each piece.
Yeah. I certainly think that's a good approach for the budget information session because we really do kind of go through more or less the full contents of that report. I think the report is, having tried to do this myself last year, it's sort of too comprehensive to review it in its entirety on the floor at annual town meeting, right? That would take like at least a full 20, 30 minutes or something to kind of go through it in its entirety. So I do think we have to sort of make a decision about sort of what are the important pieces of information and the important sections to lay out. So let me just pull up the calendar. So I want to make sure we have time to do that. All right, so today is May 13th. So we have tentatively scheduled a public information session for May 28th. That's the only, and then obviously an annual town meeting on May 31st. So we could potentially schedule another meeting next week, the 20th, to do that planning. We could do some of it tonight. I don't know. What are people feeling motivated to do? Do we want to kind of dive into the annual report tonight? Would we rather like have everybody spend this next week kind of reviewing the annual report and then everybody's prepared at our next meeting to both make suggestions about the report itself, and also we can then talk about sort of who wants to share what parts of that information at our public input session. Susie?
I think it's really important to get information out. And so, you know, go on our website, we can put out a town announce to say, look at the FinCom page. Here's the proposed budget. And I believe that the annual report helps. I think if people just get the budget out there, that it's not very clear. And maybe they pick out one piece to complain about without knowing how it fits into the whole picture. So I'm in favor of getting out the draft as soon as we can. The 20th, if we did it on the 20th, then that would be 10 days, 11 days, 10 days. So is 10 days enough? Maybe.
George?
So, you know, I've sent out an annual report in the budget last week, and I got feedback from one person, and there wasn't really any changes. Actually, I might not got any feedback from anybody, but I did ask everybody to look at it, so I'm assuming everybody has already. And we're all in a pretty good place as far as our understanding of what's in there. And so I'm thinking we should,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Susie, sooner is better. And I think we're close to being able to do that. I'm going to make one change in the cash, and it's just going to be $1,000 difference. So it is essentially the annual report that we're going to send out. And then the only other thing I want to say, AJ, is somebody should check with Haley, maybe, and I can do it if you want me to, and just make sure she's got the right budget and she's okay with printing it. She's ready to print it. It prints okay. Because if she's having trouble printing it, when I print it, revenue comes out on 2 pages, front and back. Expenses come out on 6 pages, 3 pieces of paper on 6 pages, front and back, and I think it looks okay. But Haley's the one who's responsible.
Would you would you mind kind of
I
reaching
don't
out
know.
next, because I think you know exactly how this what this should look like.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. All right, so I'm gonna share the draft annual report. Okay. And all right, and so let's kind of scroll through this and sort of look through it. So we've got total budget increase from FY25 as a dollar amount and a percent. We've got our revenue sources. That looks good.
Thing about that table where you're scrolling right now with the estimated tax rate is we also show the average single tax bill. Those numbers, neither 26 nor 25, tied to the bottom line in the budget. The tax rate does, but the averages don't, because this doesn't include the means testing. And on the budget, I have the tax rate of 1666 and 1580, and then I have the tax rate with the means test added to it.
Yeah.
That's what I multiply times the average single family home to get an average single family tax bill that ties to what the DLS is reporting. And so these numbers are a little off. And so if anybody asks any of you why that is, this is before the means testing. The means testing adds about $8 to $10 on the average single tax bill.
Right. So so it's the totals here are going to be slightly different than what we see on the budget. What you're saying.
Slightly higher, yes.
Okay. All right. I would be really impressed if somebody notices that.
Well, yeah, we've been at town meetings and people like to point out mistakes.
But it's also saying estimated.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's,
But it's estimated on the other one too. We're making the same estimate. So
That's okay.
and FY25 is not an estimate, by the way.
Okay, so then we have our pie chart that shows revenue sources. All right. And then expenses. Jim?
Yeah, George, I have a list of very minor sort of technical changes that, I don't know if now is the time to bring them up or not, but
About the annual report, it
yeah,
is.
yeah, about the annual report.
Yeah. Why don't you walk us through those?
Okay, there are some punctuation, stuff like this, but, just trying to make it as clear as possible.
Yeah.
At the very top, revenue sources,
Mhm.
and the line free cash for easing and temporary costs. I guess I get rid of the word easing. I don't think it's clear what that means. I think we all understand sort of what it means because we've talked about it so much. But I would just say free cash for temporary costs, because that's the way you stated a little bit lower.
Oh, it might be wrong lower. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're not all temporary.
right. So
that's
some,
the thing.
but
Yeah,
like-
and I was trying to figure out what.
yeah, to give you an example, Jim, like one of the things we've discussed doing is allocating $50,000 for health insurance, right? And
Temporary.
that's probably not a temporary increase, right? I mean, that's like we're not expecting our health insurance costs to necessarily go down. But the reason we did that was we didn't want the town to burdened by the full weight of that dramatic increase in one fiscal year. We wanted to sort of phase in the impact of that on tax bills over the course of 2 years. So I think in that sense, the word easing is kind of,
Well, I'm just pointing out, I'm just reading it as sort of a neutral observer from the outside, and I just wonder I don't, I mean, I understand it from our perspective, but I'm just putting myself in the reader's perspective.
I
That's
think
all.
you're
just
right. I
thought-
mean, I struggled with that, and that was the best I could come up with. And
Yeah.
trying to keep it terse so it can fit on one line.
Yeah, sure.
We could make
Right.
it eased / temporary costs.
Well, I think we might as well stick with easing if we're going to ease. That's sort of awkward. But anyway, these are all minor things.
That's okay. Yeah, keep them coming.
Where else did
Okay.
you see it in the report that it would be not so clear?
Okay, well, down a little bit lower, you say free cash for temporary costs, 126,000. So,
Right. No, that's a good
so there
point.
you sort of stuck with that. And so here you're saying it a little bit differently. That's
No,
all.
you're right. We should be consistent.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling to look for that right now. I want to fix that.
talking about 4B, right? Operating budget, all from free cash. Like this is where we spell out the different.
Well, no, in the pie chart, it says free cash for temporary cost.
Oh, in the pie chart. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to try and do as much of this on the fly as I can, but I won't spend too much time. I just want to get this.
Sure.
So on the expense pie chart,
That's, no, in the revenue. It would be the revenue, right?
right? Yes, you're
The
right.
revenue,
Yep,
top of the,
yep,
yeah.
it's in the revenue. So if I change that to
Cash.
free cash, how about a free cash for easing and
And
temporary costs?
sure.
It
that's
fits. It looks okay. Okay, I will put
All
that.
right.
Yeah.
I will make that change.
Okay.
All right. What else do you have, Jim?
All right. If we go down to section 1, we have prepared a balanced budget that in number 1F, I would F number 1, cost of living. I just would add the word either increase or adjustment afterwards. That's all. How do you?
Mhm.
Yeah, what is the committee?
Called the
which word?
COLA. I mean, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
Hold
cost.
on, what'd you do?
Oh, sorry. F,
Adjustment. Put in the word adjustment in
Yeah.
bracket
and
COLA.
then
And
in
COLA.
parentheses, I put COLA.
All right, give me 1 second here. I got to find that spot. That was for
F
One, F,
One,
one.
1F1.
cost of living adjustment and then call it in brackets.
Okay.
George, that was good that you kind of collapsed. Well, that you put both of these items.
Well, you said it, I think at the select board meeting, and so I heard you. Yeah. Okay, so it's cost of living adjustments, brackets COLA, 18K, 332. Okay, got it.
Right, okay. Okay, the next one is,
Well, I have a
Um,
question on that now. What about the realignments? The 10K was the union contract. Aren't there other expenses that are in the realignment?
The 10K was the schedule that we received from Personnel Board.
Yeah,
It
that's
added up to
correct. Really?
1,236 or something,
Yeah,
326.
that's correct.
That,
The other is the salary increase. Yes, that's right.
Well, where is the salary increase for the police in this picture?
It's not.
that would be,
See where it says excluding contracted and
Oh,
union?
excluding. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what I do is I in the budget we have the COLA, and when you change the COLA rate, it changes the salaries. So what I do is I just set it to 0 and I see how much the bottom line of the budget changes.
Oh, okay, good.
And that's how I figure out the 18,000.
Yep.
and Susie, to also follow up, so that the $10,000 police wage increase.
Yeah.
In this row
Yes.
is in E, right here.
Yeah, I can see that now.
Okay, Jim, next.
okay, this is section 4C, number 2.
Mhm.
100K from the stabilization.
Yeah,
I just
right.
would drop the word the, just
Right.
100K from stabilization.
Done. And while we're there on C, I did that, Jim. Thank you.
Okay.
C, establish PFAS mitigation fund. We're not really establishing it, are we?
Fund, just funding it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
funding,
Tribute.
Just funding PFAS mitigation
funding PFAS mitigation.
and then take.
Yeah. that works.
Done. Yeah, I was wondering about that. That was something I caught. Okay. Anything else, Jim?
Yep. Section 5. I'm trying to locate this. Number 2.
No funds will be transferred.
Yeah, into the, I would get rid
Fund.
of
I should
the,
put in the word fund, capital stabilization fund.
yeah, and
Or take
just
out the
knock the
word-
word the, yeah.
Or, all right.
Take out the.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll do that so no funds will be transferred into capital stabilization in FY26. Done.
Okay, the next one is 6D.
Those dam repairs.
Yeah, I would just say Lake Wyola Dam repairs, just for addition, it won't, just for clarification, so that
Mhm.
people will understand immediately what that is. It's just a clarity issue.
You got it.
All right. And the very last one is 7A4B, 7A4B, the regional school OPEB and employee health insurance costs. I would put the regional school, comma, OPEB, comma, and because it sort of runs together.
It's not just the regional school though. It's just those regional school OPEB costs. And the regional school employment.
Right. It's the cost within their budget is the
so we're not, okay, all right, then I've misunderstood. I thought it was, I thought those were separate.
It's not a list.
Yeah, no, I would have made those, see, because it's all under school costs.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, I was just reading it,
Yeah, understand.
not quite aware of that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, that's it.
And we were gonna fix the fact that 7 and 11 right there are redundant.
11, I took it out, Susie. Yeah, that should be, I deleted that already.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
11 is my 11 is the 94.
Okay.
Yeah, I did give feedback on this. That's right.
Yeah.
Susie told me this.
I have some discussion to do on this when you're ready.
All right.
George, isn't the slash backwards on opportunities 1 reservoir and MWRA?
Let me see. Opportunities.
Yeah.
Which line?
You just
One.
E1,
U1 on page 4.
just
Switch the backslash.
Action.
Got it. Done. I don't know. How does that work grammatically? I don't know. Okay, mine looks like that too.
Actually, so one opportunity that I thought maybe we should add on here is something about sort of potential chapter 70
Yes. The fact that I'm sorry.
yeah, so just because I think there is sort of increased advocacy around chapter 70 formula.
and rural
It's not slated for a while. It's slated to begin to talk about it, but it's not, I suppose neither is the Quabbin water
No,
imminent.
the Senate has created a committee to view it, and that's an opportunity. Opportunities aren't current; there are long-term opportunities.
All righty.
I think it's a great idea. I'm surprised I didn't think of it.
Jim, I see your hand up. Did you have other things, or was
Oh,
that-
I'm sorry.
Thanks for
So what should we say and where should we put it?
on chapter 70. So I would say potential chapter 70 funding formula reform.
Good.
How about just funding reform?
Yeah.
I'm going to make that the third item.
Sure.
And then 4 is invest in projects and 5 is collaborate.
Susie, I know you have a few things, but just maybe while we're thinking about this, does anybody else have a sort of another kind of opportunity that they want to sort of add here?
Isn't it sad we have 11 risks and only 5 opportunities?
I was thinking
We're
that
lucky to have 5.
Yeah.
one thing that didn't get stated here was that we are now, the preferred assessment method is now fully in place. I don't know if that's an opportunity or what it is, but that's going to that could make some difference in how next year goes.
Yeah.
It's certainly going to be more predictable.
Yes.
I don't know
So
where it
that's-
goes though.
Is that an opportunity? Or it's
It's
not,
a
it's
good
happening.
thing.
I guess it could be,
But it's not an opportunity because it's in existence now.
right. Well, the opportunity is things will go better.
Right.
Good luck with that. How about opportunity from the ad hoc committee that is currently looking at long-range strategic
Yeah,
budgeting?
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So the opportunity is participation in
Long range.
long-range planning committee, or sorry, soon to be
School budget,
For
regional
town.
school budget.
Yeah, and we got to make sure we got to clarify
Yeah.
participation in a long-term, the regional school long-term
Right.
fiscal planning committee or something like that.
long-term fiscal planning committee. I can go fiscal planning. So I put that below the chapter 70.
Yeah.
Participation in the regional school long-range fiscal planning committee.
Good.
Okay.
I'm assuming under risk 1, ongoing loss of state and federal fund grants, that like,
That's already happened.
yeah, well, that
No.
I think that's like we're particularly pointing out the sort of unique moment in history that we're in right now. Like, is that a pro forma thing that we always put in here, or I mean, like there's sort of a unique threat related to the current administration. I don't know if we need to sort of.
No, it actually happened in the past. We've lost some of the early childhood grants, and that's when that started being in there.
And there was changes in insurance at the regional school in the past that created headaches. This is not the first time. So we've had this in here pro forma for quite a number of years.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if it was important to like acknowledge that there's sort of a unique, I mean, everybody knows it, so we don't need to refer to Doge or anything like that, but it's like, it is like, we're clearly, there's sort of an unprecedented moment in history where a lot of these funding sources are particularly vulnerable at this moment. Everybody gets that, though, so probably don't need to spell that out.
While we're in the risk, I'm probably stealing Susie's thunder here. I think you've probably got a risk that you want to add to this regarding federal funding and risk of losing federal funding.
Well,
Should we-
isn't that in number one, A1?
I guess that's why I was asking about one. I think
Yeah,
that
you're right.
Yeah. I'd like to
Okay,
add,
never mind.
I think number 2 would be the increase in town expenses at greater than inflation, which I think is a risk to our taxpayers, to our tax bases, our taxpayers' finances, because what we see this year is 5.9% increase. And, you know, frankly, for a lot of our residents, they don't have a 5.9% increase in their income.
So
And this-
just inflation should be one of the entries?
I think that the cost of operating our budget in excess of inflation is a way to put it. I think that's a
Well,
sustainable.
Tariffs, excess tariffs.
I don't. You know, we had years of inflation, and our budget was much lower than inflation in those 3
Saying
years.
it right now, in the recent history, our budget's increasing more than inflation. And I think look, I know it for a fact that in terms of my Social Security, which is my only source of income, is low compared to this budget. And that relationship is not sustainable in terms of equity. We know we don't have a progressive tax system. We have a regressive tax system. And that's a risk that we're taking that's going to generate gentrification and basically really reduce the sort of quality of life in this town. That's how I see it. And I think it should be listed.
I think if we were to do something like that, I think it would be important to explicitly state that our level service budgets are increasing at a rate that is higher than inflation, or something along those. I think because I wouldn't want people to read that and say and make an assumption that this is happening because we're increasing services.
I would say that's fair, even though it's not completely accurate. I think it's a fair way to put it. We're adding services all the time, in addition to level services, and you know, but I would be willing to accept that language because we have a policy for level services budgeting, even though we don't necessarily follow that policy recently. So.
So how would we put this?
Level services requiring.
Yeah, so level service budgeting increasing at rate higher than inflation, something like that.
Yeah, how about the risk is impact of inflation affecting the town's ability to maintain level services? Something like that.
That's not what I've said so at all.
I think that's what AJ was saying. Well, the problem is with inflation, can we continue to maintain the level of service that we're used to? Inflation is a risk.
Yeah.
Is risking that. So I'm comfortable saying that.
But it's not just inflation. There's other factors that impact.
Inflationary factors impacting our ability to fund level services?
Yes. Well, I guess I'm
Inflation
dovetailing it in with, losing grants, losing
Yeah.
other level funding.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, think about this year, right? I mean, our department budgets for the most part are increased at levels either associated with level service funding or in certain cases cutting, making significant cuts, right? So the departmental budgets are, I think it's accurate to say that that the level service funding is increasing at rates above inflation. But then we have these other parts of our budget that are things like health insurance, right? That are sort of outside of how do we say this?
Hmm.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, and
So
school
here's what
costs.
I like what I wrote.
Yeah.
If
Can
I
you can you repeat it one more time?
Inflationary factors limiting our ability to maintain level services.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, I'll save it.
Okay,
I just don't want to do anything that's too broad. Just,
yeah,
we can go crazy and put so many kinds of things in here.
that's
Uh,
right. Massive storms,
Yeah.
climate change.
one
Yeah,
one
lots of
other
things.
one other potential, I don't know if this is accurate at all, but but a potential opportunity, since I'm trying to add something to this list, is it fair to say that, do people think it's fair to say that with with PFAS contamination becoming an a more widespread problem, that potential public support may become available? Like, I'm thinking of like this Clean Water Trust thing is ultimately may not help us this time around, but do people think it's appropriate to say, to assume that there might be some support for this, or that's just
There's
No, I
no
don't think
that's
so.
I
wishful,
don't think so.
No,
It would be nice.
Yeah.
wishful thinking? Okay,
wishful thinking.
all right, Suzie.
Somewhere in here, to show the public that we know, we need to show that the library, debt override is coming online in the future. So I don't know where it could be, up under upcoming potential capital projects, which is section 6. Do we want to say something there?
No, I don't think so. I don't
Mm-mm.
think that's the place.
You don't think that's the place? It
No,
is.
because it's, that's more things in the future. And yeah, the debt services in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, and
I
that's
feel it's
already,
important because some people are going to want us to say, it's coming down, and
I'm not arguing it's important. I think it's very important. I just don't know
you
where
just don't
it's
know
going.
where.
What if
How
it,
about,
what if it's related to 6 here? So we have updating the long range capital plan. What is it, a potential sort of sub item of that the sort of scheduled debt service for the library, and
well, these are things that, the capital planning committee is thinking about that we're going to have to
Yeah.
make provisions for in the future.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if we should maybe in the revenue, significant operating increases and decreases. Number 1 on the second page, maybe we could put like a bullet after K, skip a line and have a bullet item.
Yeah,
But it's not in the budget this year.
it's not
I
coming.
know. It's
You got to put in risk. It's going to be another cost that we just
not even a risk though, because we know it's coming. Those risks
Yeah.
are things that could happen. You know what I mean?
and we voted for this.
but it's good, but it's going to be another expense for the town to fund. That's all. It shouldn't.
Where?
So
I actually think it maybe
That's the one, under 6.
somewhere. I know it's not. I know it's an already approved project, and that's different from these other things in here, but
Right.
it is.
Well, should we put it
Could
under
be
its
an
same
asterisk.
number?
Yeah, or an asterisk down below.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was thinking an asterisk under the expenses, because it's going to be added to the budget next year.
Mhm.
It was a bullet that we dodged this year, actually. It's also a revenue item. So, I mean, it could also go in, what is
George,
it?
actually, as I'm looking at this, right, this school roof, sorry, it's school roof, okay. Because the track is already, is no
No,
longer
there's a
upcoming.
capital part to move on too, right? Remember the first authorization?
Yeah,
It's upcoming. It's not going to be in this year's.
Right, but it's going to affect next year's tax. So, you know what? it's going to affect next year's taxes, right? So when we have a conversation about revenue and taxes, I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not understanding then. Why wouldn't the library debt service be analogous to the track and field?
Well, it's not a potential capital project. It
Well,
is a
actually,
capital.
Well,
Either-
those
either-
aren't either.
we should probably remove the
There's no
track.
The track is already approved. It's
Yeah,
happening.
we should remove it. Or we should remove the track and leave just the roof. The track is done deal.
Well, you could put that in a separate category. The track and the library are already a done deal.
Right.
Change
It's,
the heading, so say upcoming projects underway and in the future or something.
well, or potential / approved capital
Yeah, that's
projects.
with it. And you could
Right,
just,
but none of this stuff is approved. That's the point.
No,
This is all
but up-
potential.
No,
So
the
may-
track is
Yeah.
Oh,
how
so
co-
break it
how
into two,
library.
so break it into two sections,
Well,
approved and potential.
you could.
Yeah.
I think it. Because
How
we want to
about
be
we
very
just make a
transparent.
How about we make a separate, we change, we split 6 into 6 and 7, and
Yes.
in 6, we leave it the way it is, we call it 7, and above it, we have capital projects affecting future budgets, and we put those 2 items.
Sure, good.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so let me make this 7, and then 6 is gonna be, what did I call it? Approved capital projects.
And that would be the library and the track.
impacting next year's budget
Yeah.
or future
Taxes.
budget, next year's budget.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the
you can-
track will affect us next year, right?
Yes.
Or affecting FY 26 budget, or starting in FY 26. I don't know. What do you like?
Let's say impacting FY 26 budget.
27.
27.
Yes, right.
Hey.
Well, God, I heard a quote today, why are we always rushing around to get old fast?
So it'd be something like this: regional school track,
That wasn't the plan. Yeah.
library.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be highlighted and all that.
Those aren't bold.
So let me just, all right,
Over.
so
And slide it over.
library building, and I'm not even gonna put dollars on them.
No.
Or new
Although I will
library.
tell you, I calculated it, and I think the debt service is gonna be 175,000 next year for the building, for the library,
Piece of cake.
based on the loan amount he gave us, and then regional school track.
And I
So
agree with
lib-
April, it should be new library. We're not
Yeah.
putting
Okay.
that money in the old library.
Good point.
We are
Right.
going to improve that thing.
Mhm.
All right, I'm gonna read it to you all real quick. So
Okay.
number 6, approved capital projects impacting FY 26 budget. A. new
27.
library-
7 budget.
27.
Yep, sorry, I did actually have that there. A new library building is A, and B is regional school track. And I took the words "and track" out of 7E. What you are familiar with is 6E.
Can you just
Done.
make it track and field, since it's like the whole thing, it's the field inside too.
Yep. Isn't it field and track? Yeah, track and field, you got it.
All right.
Good.
Excellent, that's great. That's really important. That
That's
was-
Yeah.
clearer.
That was a good change.
All right, Susie, did you have other things?
Yeah, 7A, I talked with Lenny. It's not refurbish. He's not talking refurbish. He's talking replace. And where that comes in the capital plan, that's why it's listed down below as something to be done to check on, but that's that.
All right, so I'm sorry, so you're saying
7A.
refurbished fire truck, he
No,
said
not
what?
refurbish,
Make it
Replace.
place.
Okay. Yeah, I was sorry, I was looking at something else. Replace fire truck, okay, vehicle, you got it. And it should be truck, not vehicle?
Yeah, I think it should be truck. It's more specific. It's gonna be a truck when it
It puts
happens.
the magnitude on it.
Right.
just for clarity, Susie,
Yeah.
what Lenny came to us, my recollection is that he said he was going to rebuild one of the trucks, I don't know if it was a pumper or one of the fire trucks, but what truck are you referring to here? Do you know?
Right. It's a regular fire truck. They have worked on the brush truck and they have worked on refurbishing it, but that's not the plan for a big fire truck. When he looked into it, it costs like 400,000 to refurbish a fire truck, but it doesn't give you a lot of pieces like a new engine, a wiring harness, blah, blah, blah. So he is not talking about doing that for a fire truck.
Maybe he did some homework and realized it wasn't practical or something like that. Is that what you're saying? Because he did say.
I talked to him today.
Okay, well, that's his position today. He did say that's what he wanted to do, but maybe it was not practical or doable.
I think probably part of the problem is saying the word fire truck is not specific enough, and so that would be helpful to make sure that gets clear. I have, let's see. On page 3, let's see, I've gone through a process to think about maybe making some kind of charts to hang up to help improve the information at town meeting. And when I did that, and I went and talked to Penny Kim, we came up with the way it's easy to get confused between there's an operating budget, and we have spending for that. We have capital expenditures, and we have this year, this group 4B, there's operating budget that's coming out of cash reserves, and we have 4C, and we have 4D. And so somehow on the chart, when you show the pie charts of revenue and expenses, the revenue is only about the operating costs, but in fact, there's this group of expenditures. So for one thing, I was trying to figure out if 4 should be written a little differently. Like, I don't think we need finance committee. It could just say, this is just thinking first. It could say capital expenditures and funding for FY26 warrant articles. And that helps focus that this group is about capital. And I understand it's there, but in the title, if the title is capital, I think it might be a little clearer.
Yeah, you're right. And we shouldn't, and now that I read it, yeah, right. It shouldn't, this makes it sound like these are finance committee sponsored requests, right? By saying finance committee.
So I was just thinking it could say
What was that
capital
title?
expenditures and funding for FY26 warrant articles.
You got it. I did it. I heard you the first time. That makes sense to me. Capital expenditures and funding for FY26 warrant articles. I agree with.
And
I think
take out
that's much better.
FinCom.
Yeah, that's a holdover. Something we came
Right,
up with
yep,
when we
yep,
created
yep.
the report.
The other piece is to talk a little bit about what I was thinking about putting up for information and why it might help or we might choose not to do it. So if we have any other, I don't think I have any other budget fixes. Let me look. Oh, where's the George notes? Oh, here they are.
Yeah, I'm glad you're
That
looking at those.
one, we did that one. That one. Okay, I think those are all those.
I have
So I
one
can wait.
other,
Yeah.
one other potential opportunity that just occurred to me is, so this year, I was the first time I'd learned about that chapter 90
Yes.
sort
Good
of
one.
funding program,
Yeah.
potentially be used for highway department
Yep.
capital projects. Could that be, yeah.
Yes. Especially because in that surcharge, surtax supplement, chapter 90 money is one of them.
Yeah.
And our legislators are fighting for equity for rural towns. So we may see more money in chapter 90 because of that
So
money.
then that's the first opportunity, because that's the most likely. I mean, of all of these.
Yeah.
Okay, give me some language here.
So what about this potential, availability of, it's both leasing and purchasing, right? It's not just,
Right.
Yeah.
So, availability of,
Ability to use chapter 90.
chapter 90 funding for potential highway department capital.
Well, that's already in the law, no?
Yeah.
I think this is about having more money available for that.
What Joe
Both.
Con- newsletter
Both things.
has to be more equity for chapter 90 and rural aid. So the chapter 90 money has got a formula, and she's fighting to change the formula so that communities like ours that have lots of lineal feet of roads would get an increase. And also the rural aid is something that they're fighting to improve. So I'd say that put in number one, a potential increase in rural aid and chapter 90 funding would be beneficial for us.
For rural equity.
Yeah.
And that's our legislators. That's not coming from nowhere.
Right, it's true. It is.
They need the credit there.
All right,
Yeah, well-
so,
Opportunities, because it is one actually.
well, that's one of those things that we can certainly mention on town floor. I don't know. Potential increase in rural aid and chapter 90
Funding, yeah.
for funding for
Rural equity.
rural equity. Okay, good. You got it. All right, that's what it says. Potential increase in rural aid and chapter 90 funding for rural equity.
Okay.
Number one.
Thank your local legislator.
Well, you
No,
want
I
me
know.
dash, thank your local legislator? I can do it.
They're
That's okay. Well, it wouldn't hurt.
not going to come to the meeting.
They come, they make an appearance, and they're gone.
Yeah.
It's all the way at the bottom of our report. Then
Yeah.
all right.
Too late.
So can I talk a little bit about information at town meeting? Jim Hemingway has his hand up. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that from before, Jim? Or sorry, I
Oh,
thought.
well, no, it isn't from before. As for opportunity, I don't, we've mentioned this before, but pilot money from the state for Quabbin land that's in Shutesbury could rise significantly in the
That's
That's
next.
number 2.
Yeah, we've got that.
Oh, it is there. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's all right.
It's okay.
Yeah, Susie, did you want to?
Yeah, so in the past, the FinCom that I think it was just when I was on the FinCom, we put up information around the room so that people could be inspired. Couple years we did hands, and like one year we used paper plates and we wrote the name of a committee on it, and then we put hands around it for the number of people that were on that committee. And it was focused on the idea that the town operates on a lot of volunteer effort. And it's not just these numbers, it's more than that. So this year, it feels to me that we worked hard on the budget, and I thought about making a pie graph. I don't know if you can see that. So a pie graph, but this is little. I could do it in like 6 feet circle, and it would have the different categories. One pie graph would have the revenue, one pie graph would have the expenses, and we put it way up on the wall where people can see it. And it's I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but this is in color, and it would be labeled with each section, and it would have the percentage of the whole. And that is how I got into understanding what is missing on those 2 pie graphs are things like the capital expenses, and then we have 4 categories this year that's coming out of cash reserves, and they're really not, only the one that's shown on that pie graph is under revenue. It's called the free cash 1.6%. So I was thinking about, would it help to put the big pie graphs up there so people can see it? Would it help to have a capital chart that just says it refers to section, 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, and just has it just highlights it. It just says that that's out there. All as a part, stop it, phone. All as a way of helping people realize that there's different aspects to our budget, and it's not all in those pies. I don't have the phone. Okay. So, so if we did that, would it add, would it distract? The other thing that a group of people and I were talking about is something called a semantic field, where you put words up. I saw that at my bank, and it has words like, we could do it. And that would be up near the stage where people are looking, and you'd have a semantic field. It's just the words, and they're sort of interlaced, but not like a crossword puzzle. And so it would have words like our town, community dedication, listen, public service, connect, collaborate, share, altruism, responsibility, trust. You just make a field of words that help sort of focus what people should be thinking about, not just the numbers, sort of the emotional part of coming to town meeting. So those were two things, and I got a lot of positive feedback when I did all the hands up on the wall, because it brought the people part of doing town business into focus. So I have some people that would help me. I figured out how to do the pie, how to do a 6-foot pie. And then I was talking to Penny Kim, and she was saying the report is a lot of information, and she's a pretty smart person, been in town a long time, but even that overwhelms her. So if pulling the pie out and putting a little more information about the capital expenses and the 4 categories of cash reserves that we're using. And she suggested that I make a small statement that says we have these many volunteer committees in town, and there's this many people on those committees, just 2 statements of number. And then we could do handprints around the edge of the big picture. So I guess I am working. I had to figure out how you do it. But I guess I want people maybe next week to say whether they feel it would be helpful or hinder the
Susie,
group.
could you photograph the pie and send us the photograph via email so we can look at it during the week?
Yeah, that would be technologically savvy, huh?
I'm just checking.
So, and I figured I had to do it in small so I could figure out how it works. And so I have to make some changes on it, but I'll show you what I started with. And then that would be scaled up to something big enough so it could be up on the wall and seen.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Bring it next week and we can all, or we can talk about it next week.
Okay.
I think it's a great
Yeah,
suggestion.
thank you for that.
Sounds good.
And I think it's important to highlight the number of people it's taking on volunteers to run this town.
Right.
Because we need more.
Bob.
Yeah, I just want to say, I didn't notice that anybody put what I recommended in terms of a risk, that is the inflation issue that I brought up, and about the pressure being put on taxpayers that's in excess of their ability to pay. That's a very important risk, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the overall health. Well,
On there.
number two,
I think George has got that on his version.
I think one of the things that should be definitely listed as risk is it should be noted that we have another building in town that's under construction right now, which we are going to be obligated to maintain and insure and heat and so forth. And we're going to have, I heard you discuss earlier that the custodial wages, the library, have been shifted out of the library budget. Well, I don't think there's any. This is another building, another major building that's under construction, which will be an obligation for our taxpayers to maintain. And the other building that they use presently will also be will still be a building that's going to be insured, painted, heated, and maintained. So this is a risk factor. It's another.
That building was voted by the voters.
Say it
That
was-
building was approved.
It's,
I'm
That's,
saying-
that's a
Bill-
risk, that's not a future risk. Everybody signed on to it.
Okay, I looked at the list of risks and said continued maintenance of a 40-year-old Shutesbury school, and so on. That's part of what's being listed here. Why shouldn't the library be listed?
Well, because, well, we might as well list all the buildings.
Yeah, like the
The
town
reason is
hall.
the school is the biggest building in our town and it's getting old,
Oh,
Well,
right? Don't you think, Bob?
I'm anti-growth. I'm anti-growth of the budget, anti-growth. I don't believe in progress is spending more money. I think that the town is at risk of being gentrified. I don't see anybody that could deny that. And that is a problem for me.
That's the aggressive tax world we live in. I mean, that's the state of Massachusetts. Our kids can't buy homes.
How can they afford to pay taxes here, George?
And if they move to another community in Massachusetts, they're not going to save money on their property taxes.
Right.
We're at the 50 percentile and we're a town that has no industry. I mean, yeah, your points aren't, I'm not saying your points aren't right. I don't think this is the right place for them.
We have a document here that lists the risks, and I think that our so-called level funded budgets, which are not level funded, are one of our risks.
Well, not the risk of the finance committee that's trying to operate a town. Yes, we think about the taxpayers. We talk about the taxpayers all the time and the impact on taxes.
We are the taxpayers.
We are taxpayers. I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else.
I like paying taxes. They give us services. They make us a town.
The perspective of this is for funding the operating budget. We understand that there are people who struggle, and we know that there's issues, and we know what's going on right now is so uncertain. But, you know,
we
the
also,
voters can vote down the budgets.
we also know that different residents have different philosophical views on these issues, but that's, you know, and this document is not meant to reflect a philosophical perspective, right? I mean, this is a summary of what our budget looks like and what some of the upcoming issues are. So
Because we could also add that as an opportunity would be large scale municipal, commercial solar could bring $500,000 worth of revenue to this town easily. I mean, and we're not
It would
going to
cut
do
our
that.
tax bills. Yeah.
Oh, but
We're not going to put,
April, I couldn't agree more with that, because to me, it comes down to affordability and quality of life. And, you know, it's not all about money. It's about affordability, quality of life. We have a very good quality of life in this
we're
town.
lucky.
Grateful for that. And I feel an obligation to maintain that for future people who live after I'm gone. So that's part of why I'm in politics.
Yeah, but I think some of this gets outside of the scope of the finance committee. It is a philosophical conversation.
Our choices are informed by our philosophies as well.
Mhm.
Choices here.
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So I think is there anything else on the annual report?
Yeah, I thought we moved on to the annual town meeting preparation.
Yeah.
I mean, Susie's already talked about.
So I think what we're going to do is meet a week from tonight. I think we can do a couple things at that meeting. One is plan for the budget information session and our presentation and annual town meeting. We can review some minutes as well. It's getting late tonight, so maybe we can postpone that to the next meeting. Potentially we'll have, if I can get Gail to join us next week, we'll talk about PFAS. If not, maybe there'll be an update on that.
So our next two meetings are the 20th and then the 28th. The Wednesday is the
Yes.
presentation.
So just to remind people, I had a conflict on Thursday of that before a town meeting, so that's why I proposed the 28th as our public info
Got
session.
it. Got it.
Yep,
Just
so
wanna
that's
get
it.
Okay,
We've got 3 more meetings, the 20th, 28th, and then annual town meeting.
and then
And we're done.
party time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, and we'll have 3 sets of minutes to approve on the 20th.
Can handle it.
I don't know.
And
George,
so can we get this annual report posted and our budget posted on the town website now? Are we ready?
So nobody had any changes to the budgets, right? So the
Right.
budget is in Haley's hand. It's in everybody's hand. It's the last budget I sent out. It's the budget. I'll give you the specific. I believe it's
29.
it's the one you sent with the annual report draft, right?
That's right. So the name of the budget is,
15 May
it's
30.
dated 5/7/25. I'll send it out again and I'm gonna call it final. FY 26 budget dash final.
Perfect.
So,
And I'll-
so
that's-
I should talk to town hall about getting it posted on our finance webpage. And there's also a town meeting webpage. And so they can put it there. I think they stopped putting the documents on the homepage.
Did anybody print it? Did anybody try to print it?
I printed,
No.
yeah, I printed both of them on my.
And it came out okay,
Mhm.
8 pages?
Yep.
8 pieces of paper and 16, well, 4 pieces of paper and 16, 8 pages. Okay, good. And it looked okay to you as far as, you
Yep.
know, when I walk into town meeting as a citizen, I'm gonna look at it, it's gonna be readable.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so what I'll do is I'll update tomorrow morning, I'll update, I only have to change one thing on the annual report, so I'll update that. I'm gonna send that out to everybody. It's gonna be called final. It's gonna be in a PDF format. The word draft is not gonna be there. And then I'm also gonna send the budget. Now, the budget you have is the same budget. I'm just gonna relabel it as final.
And everybody's okay with me getting it up onto the town website?
Yeah.
Both of those pieces. Great.
Absolutely.
Susie, can I ask you a quick question? Who do you contact to have a town announce sent out? Is that Brennan or is that Haley?
Well, that's interesting. I think, I mean, a person that's on a committee can do it, but yeah, you should check in with Brennan. He's probably gotten the tech savvy part now, and
Okay.
he would be that person.
I'm gonna ask him to send a town announce about the budget, the FinCom information session on the 28th.
And Haley should be on that email.
And that people can find those documents on
Yeah.
our website.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a website.
Okay, and that's gonna be under the FinCom page or the annual town meeting page?
How about both?
I think it is a both thing. So on annual town meeting, you have to click here for more information. That's on the home page. And on the committees and boards, we go over here. And in the past, we've had oh, actually it's not specific there. Maybe we shouldn't bother putting it on the FinCom page. Maybe just
Maybe under this additional documents for annual town meeting, or could it be
Yeah.
here?
yeah. And actually Gail Fleischacker helps figure it out. And
IT
sometimes
person.
you can do it on one page and it links to more than one page.
All right, so I'll get in touch with Brennan and Haley about getting that town announce.
Great.
You think it's too early to send it now, or is it like the kind of thing people want to hear a week ahead of time or more than that? Or
Well, I just found out that all the town announces are archived. So we fixed the front page of the town website. So it says you can go find the archive of town announces. See, it says looking for a town event or gathering, blah. So you can go there and there they.
All right, so I'll get something tomorrow.
Blank. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So that's good because once you get it in an email and throw your emails away, you can't remember what it said. So here's the archive of everything for a while, 2 weeks.
All
So
right.
it's only gonna be in the annual town meetings page.
Bob?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. I'll second.
Overnight side.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
All right. April, I could read your lips. You were muted, but I saw it. All right. Good night, everybody. So
Next week.
Tuesday, May 20th. See you guys then.
Yeah, and hopefully the Celtics will be in the next round.
Risk or opportunity. There you go.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.